Welcome to the Wealthy Woman's Podcast, a podcast for high-achieving women who are great at making money but struggle to build wealth. You'll learn how to take control of your money, increase your net worth, and make more. Ladies, it's time to create a life with more money and more freedom. Let's dive in. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. I am so happy that you are joining me today. So today's episode is going to be an extension of last week's episode, which is episode number 40. So I suggest if you haven't had a chance to actually listen to that podcast episode, to go ahead and listen to that before or after you listen to this one, because it will help you to really understand what I'm talking about today, which is all about your financial comfort zones, how to actually expand the financial comfort zone that you're in. And let me tell you, we're all living in some sort of comfort zone when it comes to our money. And some of us are happy with those comfort zones. And maybe we're happy, but it's just like, okay, now I want to grow. So if that's you, this podcast is definitely going to help you. Or you could be someone who's stuck in a cycle, and that cycle is your financial comfort zone. Maybe you stay in debt. Maybe you pay it off, but then you run it back up and you find yourself living in this cycle where you're actually in the same amount of debt over and over and over again. And you're like, oh my God, how am I back here again? This is a cycle. I work with so many women that tell me that that's the case for them. And so if that's you, this episode is definitely going to help you as well, because it'll help you to see those patterns so that you can start to do something about it. So I'm going to show you 4 steps that you can take to expand the financial comfort zone that you're in. And I'm going to give you some illustrations on how to think about and look at your financial comfort zones. And I'm going to actually give you some strategies that you can take to expand and get out of the comfort zone that you're in. And I want you to think of it more as expanding your comfort zone. So right now, you're in a comfort zone and you want to make that zone bigger so that you're enjoying more money, you're enjoying more wealth, you're maybe making more and keeping more of the money that you are making, and still at the same time enjoying life, still buying things that are meaningful to you, still experiencing life to the fullest. Okay. Now I do want to quickly remind you that if you have not registered for the 2024 Ultimate Money Planning Workshop, what are you waiting for? If you've been thinking about it, if you've been putting it off, this is the time to get registered. It is happening next week, actually a week from the day this episode airs. So make sure you get your spot. Here's the problem. A lot of us think about doing things, but we never take action on them. So we stay in the same exact space year after year after year. And I want you to break free from that. In 2024, I want you to imagine what your life can be like just 1 year from now. It could be totally different. I was actually in a Facebook group the other day, and a lady was telling me, she was telling everybody in the group, she was actually seeking advice, right? She was telling the group that she finds herself in a cycle every so often of just not being in a financial position she wants to be in. She's, working, she's making money. That's not her problem. It's that she finds herself in debt or owing money or some sort of thing. And I responded to her, kind of letting her know, hey, it sounds like you're in a pattern, you're in a cycle. First things first, you have to identify what that pattern is so you can break free from it. And I offered her that she could start listening to this podcast because I think she could really benefit from it. But the last thing I told her was, your life can be so different just 1 year from now. And I want to offer that to you all too. Sometimes you just need someone to invite you to think about what things could be like if you did take action, if you did take a risk, if you did try something different. Like, your life can be so different, even if you've been living the way you've been living for decades. Like, you can literally change your life with just one decision and you can reap the benefits of that decision just within a year. Your life can be so different. So I want to offer that signing up for the Ultimate 2024 Money Planning Workshop could be the first step to changing your financial life. It could be that first step, the things you're going to learn. You can take that information and literally run with it and change your life. Okay? That is what's available to you. So don't let procrastination, don't let fear, don't let doubt, don't let nervousness stop you. We're going to be on Zoom, but you don't have to be on camera. You don't even have to use your real name when you're on Zoom. You don't have to speak. But if you want to, you can. You can get coaching from me. You can get guidance from me. This is your opportunity to get help. Okay? So just go to the show notes and register. It's only $37. Or go to jermainefoley.com/2024. That's Jermaine with a G. Foley.com/2024 and go ahead and get your spot reserved. Okay. So let's go ahead and start talking about what those 4 steps are when it comes to expanding your financial comfort zone. So the first step is to become aware of what a financial comfort zone is, why it exists, and that you are actually living in one. Remember, I said at the beginning, we're all living in one. We just got to figure out what ours is and then decide, okay, do I like this? And even if I like it, can I expand it even more? Like, oh, if you have a financial life that you're like, you know what, I'm doing pretty good, but are you doing the best you could be doing? Could you expand it even more? But until you actually take a step back and just realize, hey, I'm in a financial comfort zone, and what is my financial comfort zone? Until you do that, then you're going to kind of just stay coasting where you are. Okay. So let's go ahead and get started with what a financial comfort zone is. And remember, episode 40, I kind of touched on this because I talked about last week, I talked about the 3 shifts, the internal shifts you can make to start to keep more of your money. And the final shift was to know that you're actually living in a financial comfort zone. And I shared this definition, and I'm going to share it here as well. So the definition of a financial comfort zone is the level where you're on autopilot with your money. It's familiar and you don't have to use much effort to maintain it. Financial comfort zones are very, very familiar to you, especially to your primitive, habitual brain, that part of your brain that is responsible for your survival. So one of the ways your primitive brain, and if you want to learn more about that, go to episode number 7, where I talk about your primitive brain versus your prefrontal cortex. So your primitive brain is the part of your brain that is responsible for your survival. And the prefrontal cortex, which is the adult human part of your brain, is only available in humans. That part of your brain is responsible for your growth. It's responsible for you becoming the next highest version of yourself. It's the part of your brain that has goals and dreams and aspirations. And those 2 parts of your brain, the prefrontal cortex and the primitive brain, are at odds with each other. They're playing tug of war with each other because the primitive brain is like, hey, why do we have to grow? Why do we have to do anything different? Because what we're doing is working because we're still alive. Why change anything? Why grow? Why take risk? Why do anything that could jeopardize our quote unquote survival? Okay. It thinks that doing something different could be dangerous because you've never done it before. Although we no longer live in the elements where stepping outside the cave is dangerous. Like, we live in a civilized environment, but our primitive brains are still very archaic. Our primitive brains don't understand that we live in this world where we don't have to worry about saber-toothed tigers chasing after us, right? So it still wants you to just do the familiar things you've always done. So if you have always spent everything you made and never saved and always have had debt, then that's familiar to your primitive brain, and it wants you to stay there. Even though your prefrontal cortex is like, no, I want more. I don't want to feel like this. I should be further along. Why am I back here again? Your primitive brain is like, well, we're back here again because it's familiar and it's what we always done. And if we want to survive, we have to keep doing what we've always done. So your primitive brain likes to be in a very familiar, habitual place, even though that place is uncomfortable to your prefrontal cortex, but it's very, very comfortable to your primitive brain. Isn't that amazing how our brains are so sophisticated? That's why I call them fancy brains. We have fancy brains, we all do, because it's just we have all these regions of the brain. And then I talk about the primitive brain and the prefrontal cortex a lot, but it's just amazing to me that that is how our brains are designed, right? It's pretty cool when you really think about it. And it seems like the primitive brain is the most powerful part of your brain, but it really isn't. Your prefrontal cortex is the most powerful. Think of it as an adult and a toddler, right? Your prefrontal cortex is the adult and the primitive part of your brain is the toddler. So if you think about going into the grocery store and the adult is holding the child's hand and you're going in there for chicken and broccoli, but the child, the primitive brain, sees fruit snacks and it's oh, I want those fruit snacks. And the adult is no, that's not what we're here for. We're not getting the fruit snacks. And the toddler starts to throw a tantrum. In that moment, the adult can choose to let the toddler throw the tantrum, scream, and flop on the floor, and then give in to him or her. That's totally possible. And in that moment, it seems like the toddler was actually the most powerful person in that relationship or in that encounter. But we all know the truth, right? The adult could literally pick that toddler up off the floor and walk out the store with him or her. So easy because the primitive brain is not stronger than the prefrontal cortex. But it often seems like it is, right? So I heard this quote and I absolutely think it's just so spot on when it comes to this. It says that most humans, especially if you're letting your prefrontal cortex kind of be dormant and in the background and not in control, most humans prefer a comfortable hell versus an uncomfortable heaven. Think about that for a second. Most humans live in situations that are not ideal for them. And a lot of times those situations are not what they want for themselves, but it's what they're used to, it's what they know, it's what their life has been for so long. They'd rather have that than this uncomfortable, amazing life that they could have. You, who I'm speaking to, probably are not living in hell when it comes to your finances because you guys are killing it. Most of you have your own business, you're entrepreneurs, you're building your own empires. Maybe you're climbing the corporate ladder or you're killing it in corporate America, or you're a professional. Maybe you're a lawyer, a doctor, a professor, or whatever. So that's not your situation, but you're not where you want to be. And you've been this way for a long time. And I want you to know that's because you're in a comfort zone. Okay. That is what's happening. And all of us are in comfort zones, right? Like I said earlier, some of us are in comfort zones that we are kind of happy with, and others of us are in comfort zones that we want to break out of or expand. And wherever you are, like I said, this episode is for you. So I want you all to think of a financial comfort zone this way. So let's think of a target board. And I really want you to think of the target board as what's available to you. So the full board is what's available to you. And actually that circle, that target board is infinite. So it goes on and on and on. I want you to think of that as your personal target board. So think of a target board and don't just limit to what you see, and just know that, okay, even outside of that board, it continues to expand infinitely. Okay, so I hope you have that visual. Now, I want you to think of the bullseye, that little tiny circle right in the middle. Think of that as your current financial comfort zone, okay? And as you grow, as you decide, you can expand outside of just that bullseye to the next level, and then to the next level, and then to the next level. And now think about how abundant your comfort zone now is. It's not just that little tiny bullseye. It's now a whole big circle, and you can keep going forever and ever and ever. So no matter where you are, you can expand your financial comfort zone. Okay, so I really want you to just kind of have that visual and see that so that you can see that's kind of what we're getting at here. So now let's talk about some examples. I want to share some examples of what it could be like to live in a financial comfort zone. So let's think about your income. So some of you may have been at the same income level for a while. And if that's the case, then guess what? That's your financial comfort zone. That's your upper limit when it comes to making money. Now, an example of this, I'm going to give you two different examples. Think of someone who's been making a couple $100,000 a year in corporate America, and then they get downsized. What typically happens? They don't usually go from making a couple $100,000 a year and find a job making $50,000. That's typically not what happens, right? And why not? Because that's not part of their comfort zone. Their comfort zone is a couple $100,000. So even if they take a job that's a little less, they're going to get back to that couple $100,000 because that is their financial comfort zone. They're going to get back there, right? Also, think about someone who maybe is a multimillionaire and maybe they're a business owner and then maybe something happened where they lost all their money. Maybe they made a risky, bad decision and now, boom, they're broke. They're bankrupt. Again, they would rise back to that occasion. Within a year or so, that person, that business person, they will be back, right? Because they have a familiar place that they're used to being at, and they're going to rise back up to that occasion, okay? The opposite is true as well. So let's think of someone who is used to not having money. Let's take lottery winners. Maybe they were used to making like $50,000 or $60,000 a year, and they won the lottery, and now they have millions. Well, what happens? Right? Their comfort zone is having $50,000 or $60,000 a year coming in. But now they've been inundated with all of this money. And what happens? They typically find themselves right back. They get themselves right back to their comfort zone. So that's one way you can be in your comfort zone is through your income. The other way you can be in a financial comfort zone is with how much money you keep, how much money you have. Right? Some of us are in a cycle where we bring in a lot of money, but we don't keep it. And we either spend it away or we have a bunch of debt. So we're always sending out payments to creditors, right? So think of that as well. If you are someone who makes money and then literally within a couple weeks or a month, it's all gone, right? You don't have much to show for it. That is a comfort zone versus someone who knows that, oh yeah, I keep at least this percentage of the money. So I never am broke because as I bring money in, I always keep a certain amount for me. I always have money. The third piece is with debt. And I kind of touched on this earlier. And I've had clients that share this with me that they're in a cycle of debt. Like they'll pay off the debt and then they'll run it back up. They'll pay off the debt and they'll run it back up. Sometimes their debt limit is like $10,000. Like they're always in $10,000 worth of credit card debt. Or $50,000, like they're always back there, right? They'll pay it off and then they're back within a few months or maybe a year. Why is that? That's because they're in a financial comfort zone. That is why. There's no other reason why. They are in a familiar place and their primitive brain wants them to stay there because they have survived this long living in that familiar space. Why stop now? It's working. You're still alive. But we don't want to just survive. We want to thrive. We want to have life that is abundant and prosperous and wealthy, right? So this is why it's so important to just become very aware of your patterns and your cycles and what is comfortable for you, and then intentionally decide, hey, I want to expand this. Okay, so let's go on to number 2. So now that I've kind of told you some examples, I want you to understand what your unique financial comfort zone is. So this is a reflective exercise for you to think about. Is it with earning? Are you in a comfort zone with your earning level? And do you want to break out of it? Do you have desires to earn more, but you find yourself kind of stuck in a rut? If that's the case, you can identify that. Is it how much money you allow yourself to keep or have? Are you spending everything that you make? If that's the case, that might be your comfort zone. And so your goal could be to keep more of the money that you make and to learn how to have money, not just make it and spend it while still enjoying life. Okay. Could it be debt? Are you in a cycle where you run it up and pay it off and run it up and pay it off? Is that you? If that's you, you can identify, okay, my comfort zone is with debt and I want to expand that. Is it your net worth? Do you keep track of your net worth? Maybe you look at it every year or every 6 months and it's stagnant. It's not growing. Maybe there are some things you can look at there to say, okay, what is my what comfort zone am I in where I'm not growing my net worth? I mean, that could be with your debt, maybe because you're going into debt. Maybe it's because you're not investing. Maybe it's because you haven't learned how to keep more of the money you make, but that could be something you look at as well. And then also your spending level. You could think, okay, I know that I overspend. I use spending as entertainment. I'd use spending and retail therapy to make myself feel better when I'm feeling blue or when I'm feeling bored. And I know that's a comfort zone for me and I don't want to do that anymore. So you get to identify where you are and what comfort zones you're in and just choose one. You may notice that you have a lot of different comfort zones. Maybe you have all of them, right? Maybe you're spending more than you want to. Maybe your net worth isn't growing. Maybe you do find yourself in and out of debt. Maybe you're not keeping money and maybe the income that you want to have is stagnant. However, let's pick one because that is how we're going to actually expand your financial comfort zone, which is number 3. Point number 3 is to expand your financial comfort zones. And we expand our financial comfort zones by setting and achieving one financial goal at a time. And I want to stress the importance of just choosing one at a time. Now, when I work with my clients, we usually choose 2 to 3 goals to work on inside of the Wealthy Woman's Academy, or if I'm working with them privately, but then we prioritize those goals. So we're working on one at a time typically. Okay. And I love this analogy. Think of a ship. Right? If you have a ship that has one destination, you could put that destination in the GPS and it will get there. Even if obstacles are in its way, even if there's bad weather, if it stays the course, it will get to that destination. And then guess what? Once it's at that destination, it could put a whole new destination in the GPS and it can go on that journey. Again, there may be obstacles that may come in the way. There may be bad weather, but it will still get to that next destination. And it can continue to do that on and on and on and reach hundreds of destinations, right? Versus a ship that puts no destination in its GPS and it just bobs along over the sea and it's just tossed to and fro. It has no direction. It's just kind of existing. That is what happens when you don't have financial goals. Like if you want to be like the first ship, you want to pick one goal at a time and hit all the different destinations and create this beautiful, wealthy life for yourself versus not having any goals and you're just stagnant and just bobbing around, letting life just happen to you versus you happening to life, right? That ship that's just bobbing around when the weather comes, it's going to get tossed to and fro. And everything it's going to be left up to chance for what happens to it versus the one that has a goal, that has a destination, it's going to get everywhere it wants to go as long as it doesn't give up and turn back around. So I want to offer that to you to set one financial goal. And this is why I'm hosting the Ultimate 2024 Money Planning Workshop, because this is what we're going to do. We're going to set financial goals, and I'm going to show you how to get emotionally involved in those goals so that you're excited and motivated and ready to make them happen. And I'm going to show you what to do when obstacles come in your way so that you don't quit, so that you keep going like that ship who has a destination in the GPS. So once you find the financial comfort zone that you really want to expand, once you pick one, then set a goal around that. And that is going to really help you to get to the destination. And then number 4, the final step to expanding your financial comfort zone is to normalize your new financial comfort zone. So let's pick one. Let's say for you, it was the cycle of debt. Like you were always in credit card debt. Maybe it was $10,000. You find yourself always in about $10,000 worth of credit card debt and you were just ready to be done with it. So you created a goal, you set a goal and you achieved the goal. Maybe you joined the Wealthy Woman's Academy and I helped you achieve your goal. And now you're there. You're like, oh my gosh, I'm out of it. But remember, the cycle is to go back. So how are we not going to do that? We're going to do it by normalizing this new place, right? So if it's your debt, if it's credit card debt, you literally have to become vigilant about going and using that card. And you're not using it for anything that you cannot pay off that month. You're not using it for impulse shopping. Literally, you're using it for convenience. You're using it strategically. Like you've got a plan and a reason for why you use the card. You're not using the card to overspend. You're not using the card to indulge in retail therapy. That's not what it's for. Not if you want to break out of that comfort zone. Not if you want to normalize not having credit card debt. So that's just an example. And this is what I work with my clients on when I coach them. Because yes, you can pay off credit card debt, especially if you get a windfall, a tax return or a bonus or something like that. But we all know what happens. You end up right back, right? And that's the beauty of having a coach. That's the beauty of having someone who's been there, done that, guiding you and supporting you and giving you the mindset tools and the strategies so that you can literally change your life. And once you normalize this new place, then now that's your new financial comfort zone. And now you just are the person who doesn't carry credit card debt from month to month. You are now the person who can use a credit card. You can get the perks, you can get the airline miles, you can get the hotel rewards, and you pay it off every single month, right? Maybe you're using it to just pay your bills. Maybe you're using it to buy your groceries, but you're paying it off every month and you're not carrying a balance anymore because that's who you have become. That's because you've normalized this new way of living, and now that's your new comfort zone. And then once you've normalized that, guess what? You can go to a new comfort. You can expand it even more. We don't need to expand it right away because we want to normalize it. But then after that, you can expand even more. Okay? So that is how you expand your financial comfort zone. Number one, just to recap, is to become aware of what a financial comfort zone is, why it exists, and why you're living in one. And we talked about that. You're living in one because you're a human with a human brain, and you have this primitive part of your brain that is only concerned with surviving. And one of the ways it does that is by keeping you living in a familiar place, even if that familiar place is not what you want. Number two is to understand what your unique financial comfort zone is. Is it with your earning level, the amount of money you keep, the debt level, the net worth, your spending level? Like, just get really honest with yourself and reflective and figure out what that is for you. Number three is to expand your financial comfort zone by setting and achieving goals aligned to what you want to expand. So if you want to keep more of your money, if you want to earn more, if you want to break the cycle of debt, all of that is available to you, but you need to set one goal at a time, and then you can create this beautiful, wealthy life because you can continue to hit destination after destination. And finally, once you have hit that goal and achieved that goal, it's time to normalize it. Make it a part of who you are. So I hope this episode was helpful, and I hope you will join me inside of the 2024 Ultimate Money Planning Workshop. We are going to have a great time planning our money for 2024. Because why not? Why not set ourselves up for success? So many of you are signing up already. I appreciate it. I can't wait to see you all there. And I will see you next time. Bye-bye. Hey, before you go, if you're ready to create a life with more money and more freedom, then you're invited to join the Wealthy Woman's Academy, my signature coaching program where you'll learn how to take control of your money and build wealth without sacrificing your lifestyle. To get started, head on over to jermainefoley.com/WWA. That's Jermaine with a G. See you over there. Bye-bye.